In 2011, a film was released called Machine Gun Preacher. It is based upon a true story of a former thug who found Christ and helped to save African children from Uganda's Joseph Kony and his Lord Resistance Army. But was this film's true objective to show salvation, or was it a propaganda tool of the United States to justify invading Africa to have access to its natural resources? The poster alone tells you the agenda of the film. Why is America interested in Africa? For its vast energy resources. Oil. There is one country that poses a big threat to the United States' self-interest: China. The People's Republic of China have expanded her empire into Africa and continues to grow. But the United States is jealous of this and wants an excuse to justify recolonizing Africa and to totally remove China from getting hold of its natural resources. So they put together a plan. Within weeks of Beijing 2006 reception for heads of more than 40 African nations, George W. Bush signed the presidential order creating AFRICOM. The creation of AFRICOM was Washington's response to the increasing loss of control over Africa's raw materials. China, not terrorism, was the unspoken reason of the new military concern over Africa. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb was, according to experts, virtually manufactured by Algerian intelligence with clandestine United States support. Originally as an attempt to justify exterminating members of the peaceful Islamic Front after it won democratic elections. More recently, NATO has shored up militias with AQIM across the region. Former US President George Bush Jr. formed an alliance with the President of Algeria to get access to Africa's resources, which introduced the creation of AFRICOM. Its current commander, who is soon to retire, is General Carter F. Ham, who has also strengthened ties with the Algerian president. France also wants a slice of the cake, and that is why she is also in Mali, which has one of the oldest library of manuscripts in Timbuktu. It is true that the people of Mali don't want Islamic extremists there. But what is France's true agenda in another of its former colonies? Mali is believed to have significant oil and gas reserves. Nigeria is a country that is flooded with oil pipelines, many running through its villages. This has ruined the natural habitation and many people's livelihoods, such as fishermen, where enormous oil refineries are stationed. Many guerrilla groups have kidnapped workers in these oil refineries because the oil company Shell has murdered many environmental activists, and they have to pay out a large sum of money to the relatives in an out-of-court settlement. On the 5th of January 2010, President Obama signed an act that allowed US soldiers to train African soldiers to hunt down Joseph Kony's the Lord's Resistance Army, but it was really for Uganda's oil. 2 years later, to boost the Ugandan oil war, an online propaganda video called Kony 2012 was launched. It was psychological warfare dressed up as a humanitarian operation to hunt down a man Ugandans have not seen in years, and they knew it was a cleverly masterminded tool of the United States, and they didn't buy into this at all. To date, it has over 100 million views. But to make it more effective, the most influential United States politicians and celebrities were carefully selected to use their influential swagger to enlarge the United States' natural resources agenda. But Ugandans were highly offended when it was aired out there, and they didn't see the logic of wearing t-shirts and bracelets with the name of the man who once caused a big panic in Uganda. But what people may find quite disturbing is that the United States has enough of its own resources to last it for hundreds of years, as the International Herald and Tribune has documented. The United States will overtake Saudi Arabia as the world's biggest oil producer by about 2017 and surpass Russia as the leading producer of natural gas in 2015, according to a report released by the International Energy Agency. That is why many are concerned with oil companies.
Here at Exxon, we hate your children. We all know the climate crisis will rip their world apart, but we don't care. because it's making us rich. That's right. Every year, Congress gives the fossil fuel industry over $10 billion in subsidies. That's your tax dollars lining our pockets. Making a fortune destroying your kids' future? At Exxon, that's what we call good business. ExxonHateYourChildren.com.
John Davison Rockefeller Sr. was a North American Baptist and an industrialist who was the world's first billionaire. He founded the Standard Oil Company in 1870, which accumulated his vast wealthy empire, and today it is called Exxon Mobil, the richest corporation on earth, whose CEO is Texan Rex Tillerson, who is aligned with the US government. In between the seated woman is the Shah of Iran on the left and British King Edward VII on the right. This liaison enabled William Knox Darcy to found BP, the third largest energy company and the fourth largest company, whose current CEO is Bob Dudley, whose staff sitting on the left is also aligned with the US government. Dutchman Sir Henry Detterting was head of the Royal Dutch Petroleum Company, and with the Brit Sir Marcus Samuel, who headed the Shell Transport and Trading Company, they merged to form what is now the second richest corporation on earth, the Royal Dutch Shell, whose current CEO is Robert Vosser. To expand their oil interest in Iraq, the US government created the weapons of mass destruction lie and told the public that Saddam was connected to bin Laden's Al-Qaeda when they knew he hated them. But what have been the results? These are the disturbing images the news will either really or never show you. The suffering and humiliation of the innocent civilians in Iraq. But instead we are flooded with films that either ridicule Saddam Hussein and his sons, not that they were innocent, and we only see a one-sided view of the conflict in Iraq, where we only see the pain and views of US soldiers who have suffered some post-traumatic pain in the battlefields in Iraq. But amidst all this, there is a global player that is generally overlooked in this scramble for the world's natural resources. The papacy is the oldest and richest institution on earth. According to classified cables obtained by WikiLeaks, the Vatican has the best intelligence service on earth and a global diplomatic network where foreign diplomats are confused whether to treat it as a religious organization or a political body. And it is this that disguises her true objectives in global affairs, as the British press has confirmed. Any reporter who has covered the Vatican knows how efficient they can be in burying bad news. The suspicion ever present in Italy that the Vatican has tendrils everywhere, even in the mainstream press. The Pope by far is the largest stockholder in the world, and apart from the securities, the church's assets are incalculable in palaces and property. As one of the world's major banks, the Vatican Bank is connected by international routing number to all the major banks in the world. When the famous Lateran Treaty was signed in 1929 between the Italian government and the Catholic Church, to carefully handle this vast amount of wealth, Pope Pius XI appointed Bernardino Nogaro in 1929, and through his vast global contacts, he connected the Vatican Bank to all major banks in the world. In 2012, JP Morgan shut down the Vatican account, which is surprising considering this was the bank that introduced the Vatican into the oil industry, as confirmed by the late French scholar Edmond Paris. Her interests in the Middle East are no secret. The precious help given by Morgan, the biggest bank in the world, which had become the Holy See's power tool in America, enabled the Vatican to enter the Anaconda Copper Trust and later the field of petrol. Her own journals confirms that she is allied with the mega-rich oil companies who finance many of her operations. But it is within the United States that she supports her war efforts via the Archdiocese for the Military Services, where both the United States and papal flag fly. Catholic prelate Timothy Broglio is the Archbishop for the United States Military Services. The Catholic Church will tell you they only serve as chaplains to give spiritual support while in battle. But it is approved by the Bishop of Rome. And what the news does not tell you is that these same chaplains are armed with rifles. The papal envoy Cardinal Roger Etchegaray also tried to pressure Saddam to give up the WMDs he did not have, even though Saddam's right-hand man and close advisor Tariq Aziz was a Chaldean Catholic who was close to the late Pope John Paul II. The papacy definitely duped the world into believing that she was opposed to the 2003 oil war in Iraq, when it has supported the regime change and it only strengthened its relations with the United States and the new post-Saddam Iraqi government. But not even the so-called alternative media makes any mention of this at all. But this is not the only modern oil war the papacy has supported.
Good afternoon, everybody. For over 4 decades, the people have lived under the rule of a tyrant who denies them their most basic human rights.
To gloss over the 2011 Libyan invasion, humor was used to quickly desensitize the public to the horrors of war.
I made that up.
The London Times was very clear that it was an oil war. And not surprisingly, it was the Chinese who were the first to flee, for a global army was gathering. The United Nations approved the 28 member states of this NATO mission, and the oil state Qatar became a United States ally, where their war generals worked closely together. The CIA was also on the battlefield, and she was fighting alongside her old allies, Al-Qaeda, whose throat-slitting Mujahideen soldiers were dressed to the nine. Egypt's Special Forces Unit 777, France's Special Forces, and Britain's Special Forces, the SAS, overthrew Colonel Gaddafi on behalf of the mega-rich oil companies with Vatican approval. The Vatican hasn't explicitly condemned or condoned the operation, thereby showing tacit approval of the air raids against Colonel Gaddafi's forces. Applying the Thomas Aquinas test, the airstrikes against Libya have some validity. A sad, sad picture of the future.